and at least 2 bridges were across by 0900. The engineer plan was impressive. In 4th Division's area, 3 bridges were to be built, and these were codenamed Amazon, Blackwater and Congo. The initial progress on all sites was good, with work starting almost as soon as the first wave of assault boats was across the river. But the heavy fire from the German positions damaged many supply trucks and caused havoc on the building sites. Instead of me telling you the story of what happened on the bridge build that night, let us hear the story from 2 people who were there. Firstly, Sergeant Jack Stamper. Jack, tell me, what were conditions like, and what was the morale of the boys like at the time of the bridge build?
Well, I think the morale was very, very good, because we'd done a lot of training on the Volturno. Major Lowe put us through our paces. He made us do it over and over again, knocking time off. Of course, conditions weren't the same. We didn't have the harassment of the enemy, and the river wasn't as bad as what the Volturno was. But an illustration of what the morale of the lads were was that after we'd gone to the Congo site, after it had been aborted, Major Lowe called an old group of all officers and senior NCOs, told us what was in store, and he said that if any of your men are not up to it, they can go to B echelon. I want every man to be perfectly up to it. And in my particular section, I had 2 men who'd had pretty bad experiences, and I didn't think they were up to it, and I gave them the opportunity of going to B echelon. And they were quite mad about it. No, we're going on the site, we're coming with you. And that was it. That was the morale.
Now, Jack, the time came when you had to build the Congo Bridge. Can you tell me what conditions were like that night?
Yes, we assembled and went down to the site. Previously we'd lifted a lot of shoe mines from the bridge approaches. We'd been on that job for probably a fortnight before, and when we got down to the to the river, the smoke had thickened up and there was a thick, heavy river mist, and we were all taped together so that we all got down to the site in one party. And I think we got 1 bridging lorry unloaded, and then the enemy started shelling, and the shelling was so intense we were virtually driven off the bridge site, and Major Lowe gave the order to evacuate the site, which I think was perfectly correct, because we'd have lost lost a considerable number of people if we'd stayed there. It was probably the worst shelling I ever experienced during the war.
But there was still a need for another bridge, wasn't there, to go across?
Definitely. When we went back to our concentration area where we'd dug in, and the following day Major Lowe called this whole group, and he said that the Army had ordered that a bridge must be built at all costs, and the 225, 7th and 59 field companies who made up the 4th Divisional Engineers should form up in one party of what was left of them, and drew lots for who should start the job, which the 225 started. And when we got down there, the first person I saw was the CRE, Colonel Nelson, and his coat, he got his greatcoat on, and it was just as though somebody had thrown a bucket of red lead at it, where he'd been carrying wounded out. And
then the bridge build started, did it, for at the Amazon site?
Yes, Lieutenant Hobson, he was situated in a slit trench near the river with a radio, and he was in contact with the bridging lorries and bringing them down by radio one at a time. And I believe we'd got probably 1 or 2 lorries unloaded, And for some reason, which I don't recollect what I had to do, I had to go back up to where the lorries were, and on the way back there was a brilliant blue flash that appeared at my right hand side, quite close. Now, I never heard anything. Of course there was a lot of noise, so it probably deafened the noise of the explosion or whatever it was that struck. But my first impression was that I'd trod on a shoe mine that hadn't been lifted. And I was very relieved to find that my foot was intact, so it wasn't a shoe mine. But I felt suddenly pain in my shoulder and in my buttocks. And then I went stiff. I just seemed to be paralysed, and a couple of the chaps took me to the regimental aid post, and that was all I can remember about it. I was evacuated from the site.
Joe Gilliard, who was a sapper at the time, was on the site for the building of both the Congo and the Amazon bridges. Now, Joe, tell me, what were conditions like and how did the boys feel?
Well, same as I've always said, I think the state of the men, I reckon you get 1% contemplating suicide, you know. And you've took something like 2% going to injure themselves before they go. And then there's others what can't stand it. You know, they go bomb happy, same as one chap with us, he started screaming, you know.
Were they all
Terrible
volunteers?
days.
Were they volunteers for the bridge?
No, they weren't volunteers, but... No, there wasn't volunteers, I didn't volunteer for it, but you see, we wouldn't miss it.
Right.
We wouldn't have missed it.
So when you went to build the bridge, Joe, I imagine there must have been much enemy activity at the time. Can you tell us about this?
Well, the most vivid memory is of this acrid smell of cordite. You know, there were 1,000 guns firing, of cordite and smoke, the combination. And it was terribly, it was difficult breathing at times. A lot of the time it wasn't so bad, but other times it was enough to knock you out.
And what about enemy fire?
Well, there's plenty of that. There's a Spandau firing periodically, you know, and but twice tracer bullets were coming through the bridge.
Now, you were a sapper at the time, Joe.
I was a sapper, yes.
And who was in charge of your party?
Well, Sergeant Riordan was in charge originally, and he'd be on the bridge, but I can't remember anything about him or anybody else giving orders. We just carried on carrying these panels up. When they was ready, we just went and carried another one up.
So you didn't need anybody to be in charge, really?
No. I suppose somebody would be in charge, like, but I can't remember who it was. It could have been Corporal Smiles or Lance Corporal Jackson, who were there.
But it was tremendous teamwork.
Oh, it was. We did have to a fine art, you know. Reading it took so long, we had so many stoppages and whatnot when we ran that time, when Germans were coming across the river.
What do you mean, ran?
Well, somebody said the rumour swept round the site that the Germans were coming across. So everybody down told and we ran for 3/4 of a mile. And I've told my son here many a time, that one officer who was there, he got that bridge up on his own, because they would never have gone back if it hadn't been for him.
Well, you were hauled back to the bridge, were you?
Oh, aye. We were reprimanded.
And then had to get on with it again.
Well, we just carried on as normal then when this chap got us back down.
For those of you who have built a Bailey bridge, you will know that we have to jack the bridge down on the far bank. But in this case, there wasn't time to do this. Joe, can you tell us about this?
Well, for a start, they had a bulldozer pushing the bridge across. Every now and again, you know, put so many panels on and push a bit more across. And there was 2 bulldozers, I think, they were both knocked out. And then a finish up, they had this first tank that came on the site. They got that to push it across. And there's nobody could get across to the other side, you see. There's no chance of jacking it down, so they just pushed it off the rollers and dropped it on the far bank. And they used it like that.
And how long did the build take, Joe?
Well, I estimate we started at 10 o'clock at night and we finished at 5 in the morning.
And a great sigh of relief went up then, presumably, when you did that.
Yeah. It was a sigh of relief. It was a great job.
But your preparation was as much as you could have done, do you think?
Couldn't have done better. Major Lowe, well, it was the best major we had on the whole time I was abroad. And we were building it, and the drivers were pulling it down. And he got the driver, it's the first time I've ever known the drivers work. And there was a big hullabaloo going on. They weren't going to maintain the lorries no more and all this.
Right, I'll bet.
And we built it, and they took it down and stacked it. And then in the afternoon we built it again, and they took it down again. And we built it twice a day, you know, for about 2 days, maybe 3.
Well, it was obviously a great day, Joe, when that bridge was built.
It was fantastic. I wouldn't have missed it.
And so the bottleneck at Cassino was passed after months of fighting. The Germans had always considered the fortress to be impregnable. But once the Allies had crossed the river Rapido and bypassed the monastery, the advance to Rome was rapid. After the war, the monastery was rebuilt to its former glory, and it can be seen looking like this today. Many lessons were learnt from this campaign, and you will have drawn your own conclusions from the film you have just seen. But perhaps one point does need emphasis, and that was the determination and the enthusiasm of the sapper, without whom the crossing would not have been possible.